Now, Indigenous Affairs Minister Linda Burney obviously promised to give more detail to Australians about how the voice would work before the referendum. But she did an interview on the ABC yesterday, and I played you some of it last night, where she said that we won't know how the voice body, so this is the body that will advise politicians and the executive, we won't know how that body will actually be made up, whether it would be elected, whether Indigenous communities would just choose the people who'd sit on it. We won't know that detail until after the referendum. She also said while she would like the voice to give advice in those 4 areas of housing, jobs, health and education, it will ultimately be up to the voice to decide what it wants to advise on. Have a listen to this interview.
So the referendum coming up in the last part of this year is about a national voice, a voice that will be able to speak to the executive government, that is the cabinet, senior bureaucrats, but also to the parliament as well. That will be chosen in the way that communities want it to be chosen. Some may be elected, some may be from existing organisations. Those things haven't been worked through yet.
That would be put through legislation if the referendum gets approved about who would vote those people in, whether it be a public vote or from Aboriginal corporations?
That's precisely what we are consulting on, and there will be a major consultation after the referendum on the way in which the voice would be built, what its functions would be.
You talked about 4 priority areas you want the voice to focus on: health, education, housing and jobs. As the voice advises on those areas and others, you could get advice on a whole range of issues. I know there's been debate about Australia Day and nuclear subs, but I'm more talking about areas outside those four areas. How are you going to manage the volume of advice that the voice could provide, and which ones you do focus on, which ones you don't?
Well, through a respectful relationship.
Would you as Minister have the overall say as to which areas?
No, it is up to the voice to determine absolutely what it brings forward.
All right, well, let's bring in Sky News presenters Jenna Clark, who's also Associate Editor of The Australian, and former Senator Cory Bernardi. Good evening to you both. Look, Jen, I want to start with you. You know, there's been a lot of criticism of the government for not giving enough detail so that Australians can decide how they're going to vote in this referendum. And we just heard Linda Burney there say 2 significant things. One, we won't know how the voice body will be elected, how it will be made up until after the referendum. And then also that while she wants it to look at these 4 areas, ultimately it will be up to the voice to decide what it gives advice on. Do you think it's concerning that this detail hasn't been worked out before people are going to the referendum?
Oh, absolutely, Shari. But don't worry, because apparently there's going to be a lot of goodwill in this public discussion that's going to be taking place before all of this referendum and the legislation which may come after it if it is successful takes place. It is incredibly alarming that they have not been clear with how this will work. I know, just being in Canberra just a couple of weeks ago, when one of the ministers with a very significant portfolio wanted to work through how some of the things will change in that specific area, he just gave us a 1-page sheet on how things will be sort of sorted out from the get-go. And you kind of go, we want more information, but it's good that you've got a plan. They should be similar bullet points here for how the voice will work. Otherwise, people in Middle Australia, all around the country, are going to tune out to this. And the fact that the Minister is in Western Australia this week probably isn't lost on me. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's also copying a little bit of heat from the Cook government's implementation of those Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Bill, because I think a lot of people, specifically in Western Australia, are probably saying, well, this has been an absolute mess by the way it's been implemented. What does this mean at a federal level? And she'll have to answer those questions.
Cory Bernardi, what do you think of this? And you know, again, we're bringing you both sides of the debate on my program and on Sky News, but you know, it's a bit worrying that Linda Burney is saying, vote for this, this is what we want the body to do, but then she's not able to give the public any confidence that these are actually the areas it's going to advise on. I mean, it seems like the government itself doesn't understand potentially the extent of the power that the voice body will have. And this is a point that Paul Kelly from The Australian keeps raising.
Well, Shari, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The government doesn't have a clue what The Voice will be doing, what it is capable of doing. It's just put out the vibe. And I'm astounded that some very smart people, and some people that I actually respect, are jumping on board this blank cheque. It's a racist blank cheque as well. And when it comes to the minister, Shari, I've got to say, she has demonstrated a spectacular capacity for having no idea what she's talking about. Now, I wonder whether she's modelling herself on Kamala Harris, the US Vice President, or she's dug back into the Labor archives and decided to channel John Kerrin when he was Treasurer. He couldn't define what a gross operating surplus is. This minister is absolutely hopeless, completely out of her depth. She's probably the best thing for the No campaign, if you get rid of the Mayos and the others as well, because the people of Australia are seeing through what is a giant con job. They don't want this. There's goodwill there, but they know that they are being stitched up, and the government needs to be taught a lesson in this referendum. Shari?